Hey, what's going on? AJ here. I just hopped off an amazing podcast with Eric Balance, the Resilient Minds podcast, and we just unpacked the multidimensionality of humans, how we actually tie in as spiritual, physical, and mental humans that we don't actually consider. And we usually drive in one lane and stay in that lane for most of our lives. And we just unpacked different ways of human performance and discovered a lot of amazing rabbit holes when it comes to spirituality and what does it mean to really embody and live this human experience. So looking forward to connecting with you guys. And if you have any questions, shoot them right here in whichever box there is, and hope to connect with you and see you soon.
Hey everybody, it's Eric Balance coming to you with the Resilient Minds podcast, where I feature beautiful entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and experts in their field, where they help us discover their X factor, their experience of life, only to discover how they were able to accomplish and find out their Y factor, their big why, their purpose in life. So join me as we get to discover the beauty of our minds and how can we really continue to go after the biggest and most wildest dreams while we continue to pursue and manifest our greatest intelligence that comes from the heart. Also, if you haven't, go check out the new alignment course that I've created at www.ericbalance.com/alignment, ALIGNMENT. See you on the show. Welcome everybody to the Resilient Minds podcast. I have a dear friend, a new dear friend, Mr. AJ. How are you, brother?
I'm doing very well, brother. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here today.
Brother, I'm grateful. You know, I know that you are the founder of Human Optimized, co-founder of the High Performance Retreat. But more importantly, you're an educator, a coach, really like helping people break down their mental and physical conditioning through your coaching. And today, I really just want to know what you're up to. What's new in your world?
Man, so I just sat a 10-day silent meditation retreat. That's something that I promised to myself to do at least once a year because it was so life-changing and so grounding and so just incredible to unpack all the conditioning, all the habit patterns of the mind that are not serving me. And I realized we really accumulate a lot of those. I was not in a super great space. I recently stepped in as the CEO for a personal development company, which I'm extremely excited about. It just took everything that I was doing to just higher level and higher scale. And that was quite a transition. And I kind of found myself a little bit caught up in day-to-day stuff, and not giving enough time for myself and just kind of to reground, to repurpose and just take care of myself fully. So that's the best 10 days to spend for me. I took a little holiday. So the best 10 days that I could imagine spending is on the mat in silence. And that was absolutely incredible experience to reground, to refocus, to just clean the slate and start over.
What do you think is the biggest thing? Because I think, you know, a lot of people, they hear 10 days of silence, you know, they're hearing 10 days of silence. What's that like? Like not even being able to speak, or, you know, and the fact is that it's the choice too, that you know, like, why would you make a choice to be in this silence for this long? What could you share with somebody that may like totally like hear this right now and say, wow, like 10 days silence, that just, I'd go crazy.
You see, our attention is pulled into so many different directions at this point. We're living in the attention economy. Every single person is trying to buy your attention via paid media, via advertising, whatever you can imagine. So us actually communicating, first of all, communicating really exerts a lot of energy. We burn a lot of energy through communication, and it just biologically, but psychologically as well. And when it comes to shutting up and being in silence for a little while, and actually having the opportunity to, instead of being distracted by all the different things that are pulling on our attention, actually focusing on yourself and redirecting that attention within. And that's when beautiful things happen. It's just we develop this sensory acuity to be able to perceive the world more accurately. Rather than reacting to the outside triggers, we're actually able to unpack what is within us that is reactive. Because I really love the saying, I keep referring back to it, is that you can't implant a trigger into someone and then trigger it. It's already within. If you're getting triggered, it's already within you. So being aware of that, understanding that whatever it is, however you react to the world is just a reflection of you. We're not, one of my dear friends, David, says that, hey, we don't see the world the way it is. We see the world the way we are. And that really landed for me. And that's something that we don't get to experience that often, because we're only experiencing and focusing on the external rather than going within and unpacking that. This meat suit stores a lot of great information.
It is. Yeah. It stores tons of information. And I think the beautiful thing, I've always learned to figure it out, like go out there and try to find and search, and this search has only led me to recognize what's inside of us. So right. I think that, through our experiences, I always share, like, that's our X factor, our experiences, our big X factor. And it's contributed to our biggest why, our biggest purpose in this world. Right. And
Absolutely.
So in your own experience through your own life, like I could tell you mine is, like I've experienced that heart intelligence is such an important component of literally following that heartbeat and recognizing, that people need to understand and listen to it, because that coherence with our brain will allow us to unpack an even more powerful experience of life than we've ever dreamt of, because those dreams are there for a reason. And so with you, what has been this like experience that helps you understand today, and I'm sure you've had many, right? But like today, what's the biggest thing that like has contributed, or maybe a defining moment that's contributed to your big purpose, your big why?
Beautiful question, man. And there are so many layers to this question, because my journey, my evolution was just so hectic, I would say. Because first of all, I'd like to start from the very, very beginning, where my mess became a message. And that was through body optimization. I was a complete mess. I had kidney stones at the age of 13. I was on antibiotics for 5 years straight. My immune system, my gut microbiome, everything was annihilated in my physical body. And I actually carried a lot of that into my adulthood. And I thought that, hey, the first thing to take care of is to kind of eliminate brain fog, the dysfunctional body. And that's how I discovered fitness. That's how I discovered nutrition, the basic components of just bodily performance. And I thought that was the end all be all. I went that scientific route and kind of got into, I'm a very logical person by nature and by my conditioning as well, because I grew up in Eastern Europe. And that's something that, spirituality and stuff like that is not there really talked about. The way I saw spirituality was associated with religion mainly, and religious beliefs and religious paradigms. In the country that I grew up in, which was Lithuania, it just looked and sounded hypocritical. The way everything was run, it just did not add up to me. So spirituality was completely discounted for me. So I kind of stayed with a scientific paradigm and a scientific side of things, and stuck with that, and did not even entertain the idea of spirituality and how that could be tied into everything that we do. And slowly but surely, I was traveling the world. I was meeting people. I was interacting with amazing individuals, and most of them had some sort of spiritual practice. I was meditating as well. I've been meditating for nearly a decade now, before it was really cool around the world. And so that was one of the things that I would use as a pacifier for myself. I didn't take it into my life. It was a practice that pretty much pacifies me, a practice that kind of resets me, and that's it. Little did I know that it's actually quite the opposite, because we live our lives in meditation ultimately, and whatever that looks like to you. And if you're able to bring awareness, because all we are is, it's not I, it's not you, we're just bundles of awareness. That's it. So wherever we bring our awareness and how that can actually be intertwined with business or whatever you do. As once again, my good friend David says, is that spirituality is just the extreme end of practicality. And I love that phrase so much. And ultimately, I just realized that, hey, there's no separation between spirituality and logic. There's no separation between spirituality and business or spirituality and science. They're all intertwined together. And if you allow yourself to actually find that perspective and understand that, hey, this is the way it actually works, your mind opens up to so much more. And there's no that there are no buckets. There are no separate buckets that you're drawing from. You're pouring everything into one and just kind of experiencing the world from different perspectives and through different lenses. And that's the gift that is just incredibly powerful. And one of the things that brought me to that defining moment, if you will, it was ultimately sitting that 10-day silent meditation retreat, where just everything just clicked. It made sense. Life started making sense.
I love it. And I think that you talked about something really powerful here, like business and science and spirituality all coming into the same container. And I think that that's something that I'd love to touch on, because there's an element here where, and of course, because you're so logical, by nature, that you needed to go through those routes to see that spirituality, and this fascinates me because you are from this logical perspective originally, that you've been able to break through and understand that there's a deeper level, and the logical mind is actually something that is holding us to keeping us in our heads rather than allowing us to really determine how there is this functionality inside of our hearts and of course inside of our bodies, right, which comes from so much of the same parts where we're sensing and feeling. Where how has that transitioned for you, or how were you able to really say, listen, like, I don't care how logical I am, I'm actually allowing myself to surrender, let go, and feel this essence that is inside of me, inside of my beat, inside of like the heart, and allowing myself to again feel what it means to have this human experience?
I just realized that whenever I experienced that human experience through the mental frame, through the egoic frame, I was just not fully fulfilled. I was okay, but it was not something was missing. Something was constantly missing. I mean, when it comes to healing modalities or the things that I've done to personally develop, because I've always been obsessed with personal development in one shape or form or the other. I've taken hundreds of courses at this point. I mean, read thousands of books and have probably accumulated over 30 certifications and letters after my name. It's just one of those things that I'm just obsessed with learning, and I love learning different stuff. And it doesn't discount the fact that, hey, all that learning, all that didactic learning, and something that I experienced through the logical frame of mind is extremely beneficial. That's why we're able to talk intelligently right now. And that egoic mind is actually something that Seth Godin said in his book, The Practice, that ego is not a bad thing. Egomania is. We need ego to actually shift the work, to actually do things and create the reality for ourselves, right? However, egomania is when you're only ego driven. Then there's nothing else beyond that. And that does not lead to happiness. You can see, once it's kind of a cliche, and we say this a lot, that, hey, you're going to find out once you make a certain amount of money, it doesn't make you happier if you make more. When you live a certain life, it's not going to make you happier or more fulfilled. However, knowing yourself better from within does. And that's something that I kind of, as I said, discounted. But once I started exploring and seeing that, hey, rather than manipulating the external world to elicit the feelings and emotions that I already have within, I can simply tap into it from within without manipulating the external world. And if I'm able to have this full spectrum of experiences and actually accept them as part of life and even enjoy them rather than running after pleasure and running away from pain, the life becomes so much more just whole. And that's the thing. It's kind of funny because as I said, sometimes my logical mind still registers some spiritual things or teachings. So, hey, that's bullshit type of thing. But why knock it till you try it? It's like just going into that with that preconceived notion. You see, the problem is that ultimately spirituality has been so separated from logic, and it's been discounted by logical paradigms and scientific paradigms, that people kind of automatically is like, oh, this is woo, this is bullshit. And that's ultimately the mind frame that I had. And when you actually connect them, it just makes sense. There's no either or. As I said, it's all together. So I went on a bit of a tangent, but I hope this makes sense.
I love that you're sharing this, because I think it's very common now, and I think a lot of people are breaking the dynamic of this differentiation. Like there's logic and spirituality, or like woo or mystical and science, right? And I think that a lot of it is coming together. You know, I just finished reading Greg Braden's The Science of Self-Empowerment, and how he really talks about a lot of things that I've experienced. And I'm reading this and I'm feeling like, wow, like, holy shit, like this person is like talking the scientific language of what I've experienced. And I'm like blown away, because, you know, again, you know, I've had to travel to the Amazon jungles and like to the edges of the planet to decide, you know, like the answer is all here in our heart. And, you know, like the gift of our creator, or, you know, a higher power inside of me relies on my beat, on the beat to my heart, the beat to my drum, so to speak, you know? And all of that is like when we can tap into like this pureness of love, it allows me specifically, and I'm certain other people around the world, and perhaps even you, allows us to be more playful, allows us to like come back to this like essence of creative playfulness, where we can like have pure joy. You know, in Brazil they call it sua alegria, like let's you know, let's be happy. And having that, I think, is the biggest thing that we have as leaders to really discover, because, you know, food, there's an ability for everybody to eat, and there's enough energy for everybody to actually you know, have sustainable clean energy. But the problem is with leadership. And the leadership is not conscious enough, or heart intelligent enough to really like come into this place of like, okay, we don't need to separate. And it's come to your point, to this egomania, right? Where we actually are building these differentiation, or separating so much of this abundance that actually can help us coexist and co-create and co-elevate, which I think is the biggest mission that we have today as individuals, especially as men that like really want to show up in a genuine sense of behavior. So how do you feel about that? And what is your stance on, you know, us wanting to like serve one another together, and bringing this like coalition or immersion or merging of consciousness?
You see, man, that's the only thing that I'm really understanding when it comes to that mindset of scarcity, because I come from that background. I come from that environment where, in order for you to have the tallest building in the city, it's the way to actually do that was not to build the tallest building in the city. It was to destroy every building that was taller than yours. Wow. And that was the mindset and the mind frame that I came from. And that was the background, the density of the environment that I came from, only to realize that, hey, okay, there is a different way. I was exposed to people's help, and genuine help, without wanting anything in exchange. And that was a concept that was really, really foreign for me. And when I got to the point where, okay, I accepted it and realized that, yeah, only through collaboration we can create abundance ultimately, because only one man in the field can only do so much. I realized that, wow, there is some power to it. There's just detaching yourself from that egoic me, you know, pleasure, and actually looking into contributing to something bigger than yourself, collaborating with someone more than just yourself, and building something that is beyond your persona, so that's something. It's difficult to describe the journey, how it happened, but ultimately through exposure, through hanging out with other amazing individuals and being exposed to thought leaders and great just pioneers in their categories, whatever it is that they are doing. I just realized, wow, none of these people built their empire on their own. So I might be doing something wrong. and that was just the ability to look back and realize, hey, I have been screwing up and there are better ways of doing things. And it's a choice now. It's either I'm choosing to be ignorant and stick to my guns and being right from my perspective, or I choose to step up and step into something more.
And what about like asking for help? Is that something that you needed to learn to do too? Because I know that like for myself, it was a very big journey to start
Absolutely.
learning.
I still do at times. You see, because maybe because the way some people treat me, or the way I actually portray myself on, I guess, social media or in general. I mean, I'm 6'8", I'm 250 pounds. And that's something that I'm a man. I don't need help. I can do this whole thing on my own, and something that is very, very humbling, because my girlfriend, she's about 5'1", and she's an absolute powerhouse of an individual. And she's the person that I usually consult for help most often. And it's just beautiful to see that it's not about your sheer size or that external power that you carry. It's all from within. When it comes to it, we're all human beings, ultimately trying to figure out this human existence and how to best cope with it. And after we figure out how to cope with it, we actually can start looking into how to thrive. And that's something that's a space that I find myself more and more in. I'm thriving, and there are very few coping situations that I have to deal with. So yeah, help is a huge thing, especially for men, and not just for men. In general, help is that massive thing that is a taboo almost. And because, again, schooling system conditioning, ask for it, look for it, seek it, find a mentor, find a coach, find someone to actually help you and train you to accept help. That's one of those most powerful things that I realized. I remember when I joined my first mastermind. That was something that I was doing things on my own. I'm going to figure this out. I'm an intelligent human being, but little did I know how much time I wasted trying to figure things out on my own, rather than taking the already tested path and proven path, and just adapting it to my background. When you merge those two things, experience with open-mindedness, it shortcuts your process by a decade, 2 decades, half a century.
Yeah, no kidding. And what about like failure? I think that failure is a big thing that, I've experienced, multiple different ways. And I'm just curious to know, like, if you have failed, and if you have, how did you cope with that? Or how did you like move forward to like really like, build upon it and see it as an opportunity?
That's all I do, man. That's all I do. All I do is fail. Fail every single day and celebrate it. Because one of those things, as cliche as it sounds, is like, yeah, of course, every failure is a lesson if you choose it to be.
Mm.
We're all gonna have failures. We're all gonna have kickbacks, and it's an internal choice for us to either, once again, ignore it and play ignorant, pretend that it didn't happen, or to actually learn, embody it, and utilize that knowledge and that wisdom, for that matter, not knowledge, because that's ultimately wisdom, moving forward. So I'm failing on a consistent basis, and that's something that it would be silly to pretend that that I'm not. And I love it. That's the thing. It speeds up your process. Once you actually start admitting that, hey, you're a flawed human being and you're failing consistently, it's so much easier for you to learn, because you know that you can accept it. It's like the analogy that I always use is, hey, if you fall, you fall, you get back up, right? And you start walking again. So it's when you fall, you're not a faller. We wouldn't call yourself a faller. Same thing when you fail, you're not a failure. You just failed. It's an act. It's something that you can learn from. That's it.
And I think that you really touched on it for me even before we hit record. I told you that I was just transitioning into this like element of like, marketer, where I didn't really feel that was my calling, and now transitioning more back into like this like embodied heart intelligent coach where I really want to like serve people. And
Right.
so you mentioned a really great book, and I just wanted to like to anybody that is like wanting to transition or change things. What was this book name called?
It was called Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield. And another book of his is amazing. That is, it's The War of Art. Those two books, they're about 100 pages each. And the third one, actually, I'm going to recommend if you're transitioning, if you're crafting your new vision, it's Vision by David Hans Barker. That's
Wow.
those three books. That's a trio. If you're going through some stuff and some transitions, if you just read those three books that are about 100 pages each, it's going to take you a day to read each of them. You can shift your life and change the direction of your life so damn rapidly with some guidance and understanding that, hey, this stuff happens to everyone. So I couldn't recommend it more.
Absolutely. And I think that that's the biggest lesson that I've personally learned is that, like it's okay to like really fail, and, sometimes in the past I would get really down on myself. And, even recently there's moments, where I still get into that in my mind, like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I don't, what am I doing? And then you get back into like this place of love and passion, and really bring this essence of playfulness back to life. And to me, it's like, it becomes like, yeah, I'm this child playing in this playground called Mother Earth. And I'm willing to go after every single day with all my might, all my heart, all my soul, because at the end of the day, I want to live happy. I want to live happy. And like being in this place of mind where I'm constantly thinking and not executing is not really what I want to do. I rather just try and fail,
Right. Exactly. That's one of the things. And actually what I learned through Vipassana, through that silent meditation retreat, is that all we are is sensations. That thought, that resistance that you feel within. If you hone in your sensory acuity enough, you can actually feel it in your body where that is. And you can, instead of moving away from it, because as I said, all you want to do is be happy. That's the ultimate happiness technique, to ultimately accept whatever it is that is happening in our internal landscape, and actually trim the weeds. And by trimming the weeds, I mean, instead of reacting to whatever is coming up, going towards it, moving towards it, and actually with this childlike curiosity, exploring what's there, rather than, okay, I feel something that I don't like feeling and I'm pushing it away and running away from it. So that's something that is the most powerful lesson that I learned, that we're just all sensations, even our thoughts that bubble up. At some point when we hone in that sensory acuity, we're able to feel that thought bubbling up even before it does. So it's just a powerful thing that I wish we'd been exposed to this when we were kids. It
Right?
would have made life so much easier from the get-go,
So this is actually a beautiful like transition, because I think that that's really important. What you bring up is like knowing that this is really important, since we were kids. How big of a responsibility, like for me, I really feel like I have this sense of duty and responsibility to, serve obviously myself first, right? And then, connect it to like my highest self, which is, my creator, nature, universe, whatever you want to call. And then really like the people around me. And that translates to really impacting our next generation.
Right.
So with this new level of intelligence that you've discovered, I've discovered, we can learn from each other and discover more, and we can learn from other people and discover even more and more and more. Like, what do you feel is our responsibility for the next generation? Because like, I don't know, but like I see a future that, there isn't a possibility of like a man harming his, his pregnant wife and his unborn child, because he values his own life so much, that he, is actually valuing her. I see a future where we live longer because we're able to understand that the human life and what we put into our bodies, is actually so important, and like it allows us to regenerate and heal from the moment we're born. I see a future where, we understand that mental disorder is actually disorder, and it's a dis-ease, and recognizing that these individuals have a unique, experience of life and a way of looking at things are actually sages and can teach us something. So what's your take on that, brother? Because I'm really curious.
You see, man, when it comes to the next generation, I really, one of the sayings that I keep coming back to is I need to slay my demons so my kids don't have to. So if I'm bringing someone into this world in an unconscious state, in an underdeveloped state, where I'm bringing so much of my shit and just passing it on to my offspring, that's messed up. So I want to clear that slate and be as pure as I possibly can when I'm bringing someone into this world. And it's never too late. If you have brought in someone into this world, there's always a transition. Kids can change like this. So if you're discovering these higher levels of consciousness and better ways of being in general, just from physically, mentally, spiritually, you're able to lead by example. That's the only thing that we can ultimately do. You can't, that cliche of leading the horse to the water, you can't make it drink. Same thing with children, same thing with your environment, your immediate environment. You can set that example, and that's all you can do. Leading by example is something that at this point I really embody, because I saw when I was in the military, I saw so many great executives, right? But very poor leaders. It's do what I say, not what I do. And that's something that really stuck with me. And I learned, backwards. Okay, this is how I don't want to be. And that really helped me to embody that, where I'm just doing my thing, being the best human that I could possibly be. And if someone is inspired, if someone is actually taking these lessons and running with them, absolutely amazing. I'm so happy that I can support them and inspire them to continue on that journey. It's actually funny, Eric, that we barely talked about human performance in general, as in very practical things, because as I said, I'm super logical, and we got into this heart space, spiritual space, which I absolutely love. And it's funny because, as I said, those tactical solutions and logical way of being can only take you so far. Beyond that, once you kind of take care of it, you think, what's next? There's always going to be another gadget, another biohacking technique that I haven't tried and I could try. But that's something that isn't really necessarily going to teach me more about myself. And I'm choosing more and more to live life in a way where, hey, I'm exploring myself rather than the next big thing when it comes to biohacking or human performance, because human performance comes from within.
Exactly. And that's like where the resilience comes in, right? So I think that human performance really comes from the internal heart coherent resilience that we create from the inside, like you're mentioning. And this is the beauty of resilience, and why I love the name of the podcast, the Resilient Minds podcast, because it really embodies the whole mind, body, spirit continuum of how we need to show up as a human experience, as this like beautiful vessel in our consciousness, and really coming to a place of like acceptance and recognizing that we don't have anything to fucking prove. Like we just get to we get to be, and when we get to be, we actually get to discover our true selves, and there's no necessary component that that we need to compete against, because again, this is speaking from my own experience. I thought I needed to compete. I thought I needed to, be the ego man that had competed, and took steroids and did drugs and did all these different things that took me from a completely disconnected place into a place now where I genuinely was just hiding, the little boy that just wanted to play.
And that's so powerful that you're acknowledging it and standing up to it, because a lot of men right now are just wounded boys that are creating this character armor and shields to actually protect that little boy from the outside, and that can only go so far. I mean, so you can only buy so many cars and build so much muscle in order to protect it. And once actually something gets under your skin, another car is not going to solve that problem. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful journey, and I'm super grateful, honestly, to have discovered it fairly early in my development. I'm thinking about being obsessed with learning and discovering, and I thought that it was limited by the logical mind, by the hundreds of books that I've read. And one of the great mentors and just an amazing business mind, actually, Keith Cunningham, he put it really, really well. Pleasure is stimulating your senses. Success is what you get, and fulfillment is what you give. Or I actually add to that, fulfillment is what you become. So that's something that is asking that question: who can I become, rather than what can I have or what can I feel? Who can I become?
That's really profound, brother. I think that a lot of people can learn from that statement, and who can we become is really, anything if we really put our minds to. And I feel like you do a lot of work with individuals that to lead them to this discovery. So tell us a little bit about, what that looks like, and how has it been like evolving to where you are today with optimizing this beautiful experience called life.
Right. So it's funny that I recently discovered the way I use the wording in my branding is it's human optimized, not optimized human, because human always comes first. We just realize that we're still humans, and then once we accept that, we can start optimizing. Because a lot of us are trying to skip that step where before we accept where we are right now, where we currently are, we try to bypass the whole experience and acceptance. For example, when you're an alcoholic, you admit that, hey, I'm an alcoholic. You accept where you are, and then you move from there, rather than trying to create this cognitive dissonance and actually pretend that it's not happening. So really being clear of where you are in any regard, physically, mentally, or spiritually, that's the first step. And my journey of teaching has been evolving so rapidly, because I started with just numbers. Okay, so we're going to look at your blood panels, which I still do. By all means, I still introduce and merge those two worlds together. So we still introduce blood biochemistry and data into the equation to see how your body is doing on the biochemical level. Then we kind of look at the lifestyle choices that are impacting that blood biochemistry. And then we accept, okay, this is where we currently are. Now, where do we want to be? Okay, we establish that. And then we take the path of what it's going to take to go from where we are to where we want to be. And it can be very measured, very logical, and very scientific, or it can be visceral. It can be internal, spiritual. It can be some people just kind of drop that. Okay, it's great. I got to the point on my body where I'm happy with it. It's functioning perfectly. Now, what's next? How do I optimize my mind? How do I actually bring that attention to and awareness to everything that I do? Then that's the next step. And then, okay, we took care of that. How do I become happier? How do I become a more fulfilled individual? So understanding where you currently stand, it's incredibly important for me. and for people that I work with. So some of them just start with that, logical level, and some develop into something more. Some just stop once the logical ground is covered. So it really depends on that evolution of multidimensionality that actually has shown me that there's so much more to study, so much more to discover, and there's no ceiling to it. It's just a choice. So I created ultimately the methodology that, this is how you get from point A to point B in this regard, and then that regard. And then if you choose to explore it further, hey, I've explored it myself. So I can only take you as far as I have taken it in my own life. So I'll never teach anyone something that is from a textbook, but I haven't experienced fully.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things that embodied experience and knowledge and wisdom, which I touched on a little bit, is that knowledge is just here. Wisdom is when you actually embody and experience it. So to know and not to do is not yet to know. Whoever said that.
Exactly. And I feel like that is so important, because maybe that's why I'm in this transition now, because I feel like I've always like had this hunger or this urge, and like until I've really recognized like the feeling of it, because we're here ultimately to feel, right?
Right.
And when you feel that, and that wisdom now is so much easier to translate. But the discovery that I had, and I'm curious to know about a lot of like your clients, and if this is like a very common, like I really got into the body, right? Like really focused in the body, right? And then I got into the mind, and I was like stuck in the mind forever, bro. Like forever. Like I just literally, like it was like everything I would do would be from the mind. And then finally I got into the spirit. And it was really difficult. There was a lot of like masculinity, holding on, like that I needed to like let go of, because when you get into that place of spiritual awareness, you're now flowing, right? Like you're allowing this feminine version, this great mother, to really come to you and guide you. And to me, it was like it was painful, bro. Like I literally fell into a temazcal and burnt my whole right side of the masculine side. Like spirit was like, wake the fuck up, like it was so funny. I mean, funny now. Before it wasn't too funny, but you know what I mean? Like, but is this like a common approach? Is it body? Is it mind? And then is it spirit? Is that normal?
It is. That's the thing, because it is difficult to tap into mind or spirit when your body is dysfunctional, when it's completely, that's the thing. For people who are more open and more just self-aware, then I know that I'm screwing up in all of these regards. Then we can actually raise that in parallel by all means. However, usually when people are just starting their journey and they know that they need to change something, they kind of start with the most logical approach, the one that they know, and they're trying to solve the problem with the level of thinking that the problem was created in. And that's something that, again, you give them what they actually want, or give them what they want, but you actually give them what they need, or show them what they want, but give them what they need. So that's one of those things that actually, when you're coaching someone and navigating the weeds of human psyche, it's very interesting to get into that place where, let's see where this person is at mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and see how we can navigate this minefield of, where do we push? Where do we withdraw? What is the next transition? And as I said, this is something that this exploration has been so adventurous, and it's definitely never ending, because just going into that childlike curiosity, as I said, it's a powerful place to be in. I found myself that I never stopped learning. Again, still mentally, I still read books. I still read 2 to 3 books every day, every week, and that's something that I keep on going. However, I also dedicate some practice for my spirituality, because it is a practice. So you want to bring one up to speed with another, so then you can actually unpack the whole thing, the whole multidimensional being that you actually are.
I love that. And I think it's important, and it's definitely a balance, no pun intended. Brother, so bro, tell me, like, if anybody's curious about knowing more about you, how to connect with you, how to reach out to you for more help, what's the best place? How can they reach out to you?
The easiest way is my Instagram, human.optimized. And you can just click the link in my bio, and it takes you to this life inventory that is high performance assessment. And what it does is ultimately gives you a clear understanding of where you currently stand. And wherever you want to take it from there, you ultimately have two options. One option is to evaluate yourself, see, okay, these are the questions that I haven't asked myself before. These are the realizations that I haven't had before. And I'm going to look at them and then find a way to figure it out on my own. Option number two is find help, either from me, or I have an amazing network of practitioners, from spiritual to mental to physical. It's just the whole ordeal. And I can, if we're not the fit, I'm more than happy to refer you to someone who can actually really help you. So that would be the easiest path. Now, if you want to discover this journey of maybe guiding people towards that, we have a human optimization coaching certification coming up as well. So that's something that I'm excited to bring out to the world. And my book is coming out as well. And it's called Self-Help is for Losers. And that is something that I've been really from that mental space when I started, and then understanding how I thought that self-help is for people who are failures in life, and the whole journey of discovering that from that bitter loser place and not understanding how people can be so happy. As I look at a happy person and kind of think to myself, what the hell is he so happy about? Like, what is there to be so happy about? Fuck this guy, type of that kind of mentality to actually understanding that, hey, you can be. For fuck's sake, why are we wasting time not enjoying ourselves as much as possible? And at the same time, really finding that navigating, okay, you can enjoy pain, you can enjoy suffering, you can enjoy all these things rather than, eating yourself for it. So
exactly. So everybody, make sure to go check out human.optimized. Make sure you check out AJ, follow him, like him. Support. He's got tons of value that he adds on Instagram as well. So make sure to go click on the link. I'll also post the link in our show notes for anybody that is driving right now. But brother, I have one last question for you before we go.
Absolutely.
And this is a question I ask everybody because I always like to know. I'm just curious. If you had 3 days left to live, what would you do?
3 days left to live. I would sit in meditation for those 3 days. Sit in silence and reconnect with myself. Probably make a few phone calls and say what needs to be said, and just kind of complete that loop, and then sit in silence for the rest of it.
Wow, beautiful. So beautiful, brother. I really look forward to connecting with you in person, my friend. I'm looking forward to really spend some time together. Yeah, brother. I definitely am coming soon. Super blessed to connect with you. Thank you, Aaron. So super excited to be part of the tribe and connect with you guys deeper. Just grateful for your presence, grateful for your time, bro. Super humbled by all the knowledge and brilliance that you bringing to the world. And stay safe, be blessed. Do you have anything last you want to share?
That's it. I'm really complete. It's just taking this knowledge and actually applying it and turning it into wisdom. Whatever it is that resonated with you. If you're inspired, don't waste that inspiration. Don't waste that momentum. Grab onto something, roll with it, explore, go into that rabbit hole, and don't let it go.
Blessings, brother.
Amen.
Hey, everyone, and thank you so much for listening to The Resilient Minds. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please make sure to go comment and like and follow us on iTunes or Spotify. And please make sure that if you really love this, to share this episode. And make sure that you're inviting all your friends to like it as we continue to unfold what the beauty of our minds does, more importantly, how powerful our heart level of intelligence can be when we combine our heart and our brain together. And more importantly, check out the alignment course that I've created. It's seriously there for you to take advantage of at www.ericbalance.com/alignment. See you on the next show.